How are you lovely people doing today? My name is John. Welcome to a beautiful episode of the Zombie Storyline Q&A. In this series, I take your questions about the zombie storyline and I answer them. Whether you have a big, a small, or a simple question, go ahead, either leave your questions down below or tweet me at JohnnyJ25, and maybe while you're there, drop me a follow. Either way, you may be in the next episode. Enough with introductions, let's get rocking and rolling with the episode. We're going to kick things off today with a question from Zova Golds, who asks, what is the meaning of Ascend from Darkness? So Ascend from Darkness has been a phrase that's been mysteriously featured in every single one of Treyarch's Call of Duties since World at War. It was first seen on the map Nocturne Totem. When you're in the starting room and you purchase the staircase that leads you up to the balcony area, you can see Ascend from Darkness scratched into the walls. Now, I believe at the time it was written, it didn't really have much of a meaning. Remember, the development process of Nocturne Totem was a rushed one. They weren't focused with creating a story, they were focused on creating a map that functioned that they can put in the game. The last thing they were concerned with was setting up a story that would be told over the next 8 years. They were just trying to create a working game, so they didn't write Ascend from Darkness on the walls with the idea that it would have some sort of meaning that would be revealed later on or be important in future maps. They just kind of threw it in there, possibly just to symbolize the fact that you're purchasing this door that leads you upstairs into a more lighter area where you can see out into a balcony and get a better idea of your surroundings. Or it may have just been put in just to add sort of, I guess you could say, a level of creepiness or mysteriousness, and maybe a bit of lore to say the only way to really escape this hell, this darkness, is to ascend, to die, and go to heaven, because there's no other way to leave Nocturne Totem other than to die, since it's an endless sort of map. That might possibly be the meaning of Ascend from Darkness within Noct. I don't think it has much of an actual meaning, though, when they first created it. Now, it was then referenced in the Black Ops map Vorkuta, which was the second mission in the campaign. There are the 8 Vortuga steps within this map. We have Secure the Keys, Ascend from Darkness, Rain Fire, Unleash the Horde, Skewer the Winged Beasts, Wield a Fist of Iron, Raise Hell, and finally, Freedom. Now the second step, Ascend from Darkness, is the important one. Ascend from Darkness is when you use the elevator to get to the main surface level. That's where it was then seen, and then people thought it might also be used in Ascension because the steps sort of mirror the Easter egg. And we have Ascension and the word Ascend, although that connection doesn't really bear much importance. It was then finally referenced again in Black Ops 2 during the map Origins. The Easter egg steps are actually the steps of the Vortuga steps, and we see them written on the walls in the crazy place. And the second step, Ascend from Darkness, is when you take the staves and you place them into their holders. Now 3 of the staves go into the Origins robots, so maybe you need to ascend into the 1,000-foot robots and place the keys, and then that takes you one step further to completing the Easter egg. Those have been all the references to Ascend from Darkness within zombies. Now, we've seen similar writings on the walls, most notably in Keener Toten, a famous one that I recently explained, Beware the Six, sort of falls into that similar vein. We don't necessarily have much of an explanation or meaning for these writings, where they came from. It could possibly be written by the survivors who were originally in the apocalypse, so maybe the first sort of people to be in the map Noct, or the first couple people to be suffering in the outbreak of Keener Toten. They may have written it, or it could possibly be written by some ethereal being, giving people tips or helping them, or just sort of toying with their minds, saying you need to ascend from darkness or beware the six. It's hard to give an exact explanation or meaning to them, but that's what we can at least draw from Ascend from Darkness. Moving on, we have a question from Carson Shane, who asks, could element 115 be Unun Pentium? If you didn't know, Unun Pentium is number 115 of the periodic table. Keep up the great work. So I was aware of this, however, I don't think that element 115 is a reference to the real-life element Unun Pentium. You see, Unun Pentium was first discovered in the year 2003. However, the idea of Unun Pentium has existed since we knew how atoms were structured and worked. There's always been this idea that if you put 115 protons together, you'll have element 115. But it wasn't until 2003 that it was first created. And the way discoveries of atoms work, or at least massive atoms like these, is you take particles and you put them in a particle accelerator and smash them. And for fractions of seconds, these elements exist. However, because they're so unstable, they quickly dissipate into smaller atoms. So Element 115 was first created in a lab in 2003. However, the way the scientific community works, while they do recognize the fact that they reportedly created Element 115, they do not observe it as an official discovery until others can replicate the results. So in 2014, CERN was able to create Element 115 again, and that is when Element 115 was officially discovered, and it will soon be given an actual name rather than the placeholder name Unum Pentium. Now the thing is, because these atoms exist for fractions of a second, we can't exactly study them, and they don't really have many traits or attributes. We don't know much about them. So Treyarch, when they were sort of creating a mystical element, just picked Element 115. At the time, it didn't really exist in the natural world. We didn't know anything about it, so it was a perfect element to just use as your fictional element. And then, as time went on, Element 115 was actually discovered. However, I don't believe we'll ever really learn much more about Element 115 since it only exists for fractions of a second. And it just wouldn't make sense for Treyarch to be referencing an element such as this. They just kind of picked it because at the time, it didn't really have any features. We're going to end today's episode with a question from Hussein Alataji, and I really apologize if I mispronounced your last name, but he asked, is there any difference between Vril and the Vril Ya? Sorry if this is a stupid question. So I don't believe this is a stupid question. I think a lot of people think they can use Vril or Vril Ya interchangeably and don't quite understand what they mean when they say these words. So let me explain. The idea of Vril and the Vril Ya were first thought up by a man named Edward Leighton in his fiction novel, note fiction novel, The Coming Race. And what the book told was a group of people known as the Vrilya who lived within a hollow earth. And they were a highly advanced and ancient race who was able to create quite mystical and amazing devices using an energy source known as Vril. So Vrilya are the people, and then Vril is the energy source. That's why on the map Call of the Dead we have the Vril generator, and the Vril generator was created by the Vrilya. And we believe that the Vrilya might have actually came from Shangri-La. This is at least within the zombies lore, because supposedly Shangri-La is a gateway to Argatha. So that's where that all comes from. The difference is Vril is the energy, Vrilya are the people. However, within the zombie storyline, they're real, but in our world, they're just fiction. That's going to wrap things up for this episode of the Zombie Storyline Q&A. If you enjoyed the video or found it interesting, maybe leave a like, possibly subscribe. I upload multiple episodes every week, and if you enjoyed this one, I'm sure you'll enjoy the next one. Have a great day, and bye.